stream. Cool. Very, very cool. And then if it's over, change. Cool. Awesome. Copy of live stream. Perfect. Oh, yay. Cool. I can go live on, what is this? Too long? There you go. Okay, save. And I guess we're streaming on YouTube now. Cool. Okay, cool. So let's get into it. Yeah, of course, Sarah, of course. Thanks for the welcome and remembering. Great. Okay, so here's what we're going to cover. We're going to go kind of systematically and just talk about these things. So just so you guys know, who am I? My name is Sterling Cooley. I'm a subject matter expert in the field of ultrasound vagus nerve stimulation, as recognized by regulators who work with the FDA. So when people who deal with the FDA need to understand how you can stimulate the vagus nerve to use in therapeutic treatments and well-being and wellness applications, I'm one of the first people that they call. So that's who I am. I've been running this group now for 5.5 years. I've been actually working in biotechnology for about 12 years. So I'm 34. I started when I was 22 back in Berkeley, California, at UC Berkeley, and then moved to Tucson, Arizona to work in a clinic to stimulate the brain with ultrasound, and then eventually looked at the vagus nerve and as maybe a little bit more of an appealing stimulation area. So since that time, I ran basically a coaching business starting in 2017 to start helping people with the technology to use it properly and safely and effectively, and to develop really good lifelong habits around getting their vagus nerve to work. And so far, I think I've personally worked hand in hand, with clients for close to about 600 people, which may not seem like a lot, but in 5 years, just being me and a few other people, a small team, I'd say I've done pretty good. I don't have institutional backing. I don't run ads on CNN. I just come here on this Facebook group and I say, hey guys, did you know you had a vagus nerve in the first place and you can stimulate it and it can make you feel good and all that kind of stuff. So that's basically what I do. So in that work, I've absolutely had clients who have Lyme disease, who I have either successfully tapered off of benzodiazepines or have unsuccessfully tapered off of benzodiazepines. So we're going to cover that. And people who are actually on benzodiazepines and not having good luck tapering off of them at all. So that's kind of what we're going to cover here. And as far as, releasing trauma, that's all. I'll basically tell you that as a human being, there's always going to be something that can be classified as trauma. So we're definitely going to cover like what does the vagus nerve play in that role. So, but anyway, while you're here, real quickly before I start going into these, just give me a better indication of who's watching and what out of those 3 areas are ones that you specifically are dealing with. So I have a better sense of like, maybe I can give more priority to one or the other. Like, do we have more people watching who are dealing with Lyme disease, Bartonella, co-infections, etc.? Because that's absolutely a subject of concern with the vagus nerve. Also, benzodiazepines are a really big thing that can basically shut off your vagus nerve in a really bad, not permanent, but a very debilitating way. So I do want to talk about that too, but then also releasing trauma. So if you're in that journey, wherever you are, if you're like, yeah, I have some really bad PTSD or some kind of a childhood trauma. And, again, I'm not asking you to share anything that you don't feel comfortable sharing. Also remember that other people watching this video may feel triggered by reading specific details of childhood trauma. So I would just ask that if you do ever share anything about a traumatic experience, that you don't go into explicit detail. That would be my request. Does that sound fair? So, if there's anything that happened, first of all, we're sorry that happened. 100%. I know we can all empathize, but we don't need to get into the nitty-gritty details of what happened when we were children, because almost everybody had something really bad happen when they were children. And that actually does lead into illness later on in life. And that's validated by the work of Gabor Mate, talking about the realm of the hungry ghosts and how childhood trauma can lead into drug addiction and drug abuse and alcohol abuse and just all kinds of psychological issues. And then also Bessel van der Kolk, who talks about the body keeping the score. I'm sure you've heard that title before. So this is all a very common human experience. But what is not a common human experience is getting, bitten by a tick or being prescribed benzodiazepines and getting really sick. So we can, those are details that are worth clarifying. So I see Tribe here shared, great name, by the way. Hey, this is the Vegas Tribe, so welcome to the Tribe. So Tribe wrote, just gonna read this out here real quick. I have yet to figure out what's going on with me. Crashed in 2017 with months of not feeling well, burning arms, then sudden complete loss of energy while I was talking. So I won't read it out total. I'm just going to stop here and interject here. And we absolutely will cover these subjects. Just want to, hey, it's the weekend. It's Memorial weekend here in the U.S. So we're just taking it easy today. It's not going to be hardcore, in your face kind of thing. It's just going to be like, hey, we're just kind of hanging out. It's like 5:17 p.m. Pacific. It's probably on the East Coast like 8:17 Pacific or Eastern Standard Time. So whatever. Let's relax and learn and have fun. Doesn't have to be so serious. Okay, so then, you said burning arms. So that would be radiating, like potentially I would classify that as maybe neuropathy, starting from the cervical portion of your neck. There's something that goes with the neck as well that has some issues there too. So that would be, and actually one thing that I do when I get on calls with folks here, I do a lot of free consultations on the phone call, on the phone here to help people. 23,000 people, a lot of them need help. So I'm like, I make myself as available as I humanly possibly can. And I'll oftentimes ask them, not just like, hey, how do you feel like your overall health is going, but do you have any neck pain? Do you have any neck radiation, neuropathy issues? Because if you see a neck specific issue, it typically means that your vagus nerve is also affected at the very top from the atlas bone. So that's another area that, Tribe, you and me and everybody here watching, we all probably do this like this, you know what I'm saying? The slouching, the looking down, and that can start to, that adds up. And so our neck starts to get straight and curve in the wrong direction and starts to pinch nerves. And then that also pinches the vagus nerve. And when you pinch the vagus nerve, it gets really bad really fast. So then you also said sudden complete loss of energy when you were talking. So your vagus nerve controls the voice box. So that is when you speak. A lot of people think like, you'll hear on blogs, because a lot of people doing this are like very surface level. The vagus nerve world is getting bigger and bigger. I don't know if you've noticed. I've been around for, like I said, 5.5 years in the vagus territory. So, and I've read a lot, I've studied this a lot, and I worked for 12 years in actual neuroscience prior to even touching the vagus nerve. I started with the brain, so it's much more complex. Vagus nerve was like a walk in the park compared to what I had to do and learn to stimulate into the brain with ultrasound. So anyway, most people will tell you, well, when you speak or you hum or you gargle or you sing, you're stimulating the vagus nerve because you're vibrating your throat. But that's just like a really like basic level look at it. It's when you speak, your vagus nerve is actually the thing sending the electrical signals into the muscles that regulate the contraction of air. So there's a coordination between your vagus nerve and that. It's not just because it's vibrating in your throat. That's like, no, that's not why that's working. So your body was having to do extra work just to be able to talk and draining you of energy. So right there, the two combinations of just burning, like I could just tell you, burning arms, that's a neck cervical facet, like nerve outlet syndrome kind of thing. And then also the talking issue also would indicate something additionally with the neck. And anytime I see the neck being a problem, I almost always am going to find vagus nerve issues, because guess what? Your vagus nerve runs right through your neck. Whoa, crazy thought, right? Your vagus nerve goes from your brain stem and it goes out under here. It basically runs right under your earlobe. Like, you know, directionally, it's not under your earlobe, but if you need a good landmark, everybody's got an earlobe. So I typically say, you know, it's going to be right about here, and then it's going to run all the way down the neck, kind of under this big muscle, this called the SCM, the sternocleidomastoid muscle, and your vagus nerve runs down the left side. So your vagus nerve branches out to, you know, we call it the vagus nerve, and it is still considered the vagus nerve, but it has a branching effect, kind of like the roots of a tree. So let's say you look at a big, large, beautiful 100-year-old oak tree. The top of it represents your brain, and then the roots that go into the ground represent the root system, you know, to get nutrients and water and whatever. So you would say that even though it's roots, it is still the root of the tree. So you don't have to say, well, there's many different parts that branch down from in the root system of a tree. Why don't you call it the vagus nerves? Well, we don't. We just call it the vagus nerve. And it is still part of that same tree, which is you. You are the tree. And your vagus nerve is the root system. And the root system branches on the left side and the right side. And then it branches even further down to your heart and your lungs and your spleen and your stomach and your digestive tract and your liver and your gallbladder. So it goes all the way down, but it's your vagus nerve. So your atlas bone is probably going to have rotated in one direction or the other, or even forward, and it's going to start pinching the vagus nerve. And if you cut the circulation off of your vagus nerve, then you're going to develop some severe problems. And speaking would absolutely be one of those problems that would develop. So I could probably tell you right from there that you're probably in the right place to start to kind of look at this and learn how to do something at least with this, hopefully. So yeah, real quick, let me just answer a little quick message there. Okay, so anyway, sorry for the the detour there. You also had shared, unable to walk much, had to hold up my tummy, my muscles were so weak. Anxiety, big time. Anxiety is definitely vagal, for sure. Your vagus nerve is not working very well. Heated up quickly, temperature dysregulation, diagnosed at the time Hashimoto's, another autoimmune condition, which is a vagus nerve specific issue. Deficient in vitamin D, not getting enough sun, maybe, who knows. Still very quick to muscle fatigue, but recover very quickly in sitting. Okay, so yeah, so your muscles require the neurotransmitter acetylcholine, and acetylcholine is the neurotransmitter that makes your muscles able to fire. And guess what other thing in your body requires acetylcholine? Your vagus nerve. So if you're getting weak in your muscles, that is a big indication that it'd be like you know, let's say you're in a car and the gas meter is at the E, the empty, and you put your foot on the gas and the car doesn't get much oomph. And so your engine requires, for your car to move, gasoline. But let's also say that some other parts of your car, like the electrical system, also depend on the power generated from the engine, which is what the alternator does to feed the voltage into your battery. And if you're trying to turn your radio on and it's not playing properly, you wouldn't. Oh man, I'm so sorry. My video is really weird. I'm not a secret reptile, and my face mask isn't coming off. I'm just using some software to stream here. I don't know why that's happening. Sorry about that, guys. That is so weird. Huh. Okay. I'm just gonna do a little quick tweak. I don't like looking at my face and it doing that. That's very weird. All right, we're gonna do that and lower the stream rate. Is that right? I don't know. I'm just gonna increase it actually. Variable bit rate, automatic bit rate, apply. Okay, great. Cool. So, all right, getting back to it. Sorry about that. You know how technology goes. So, okay, so yes, very much a lot of things are pointing to that coccyx area, out to hip joints. So that's also where we would talk about trauma release, because the psoas muscle is going to have some issues there too. Standing, muscles even hurt and fatigue, and holding anything for a length of time. Feel like I'm 99 years old. Yeah, so Tribe, you're probably Yeah. There's definitely a vagal issue for sure. And I'm so sorry about that. First of all, that sucks. A real quick story. There's a woman who is really, really fantastic, really inspirational as well. Her name is Kelly Owens. Oh my God, what is up with my face here? It. Are you guys getting that thing with the video too? It's really weird. It looks like it's like not updating. Oh man, come on. I'm so sorry, you guys. I just don't like that. I'm such a stickler for that kind of thing. 4 ultra fast. Is there any way I can do this? Okay, apply, change. Okay, boom. Okay, maybe that'll work. I don't know. No? You're not getting it? Okay. Sorry, when I look at the YouTube video, it's glitching out, or the Facebook video glitches out for a second. So anyway, okay. So yeah, Tribe. Yeah, you're 100% in the right place. This woman named Kelly Owens, she would have said the exact same thing. She had Crohn's disease. She got, and I'm not here. Just full disclosure, I do not. I am not a retailer or distributor or salesperson for vagus nerve stimulator implanted devices. So I'm going to share a story about a woman who did participate in a clinical trial to have a vagus nerve stimulator implanted surgically into her neck to stimulate her vagus nerve. And she said exactly that. Prior to that, she was in her 20s. She felt like she was a 90-year-old woman. It was 2 weeks after having that device turned on that all of the autoimmune conditions, her Crohn's, her rheumatoid arthritis, her fatigue, her POTS, all went away after stimulating her vagus nerve, which is really remarkable. So it made her feel like she was 20 again, if not younger. She got her life back. So, that is why I will say, that's why I do this work, because if you hear a story about that, and then you start to see that in clients, and you start to see that in others as well, you go, okay, well, there's clearly something here that can be helpful. And, if I'm going to be on this planet for any amount of time, what else in the world would I even want to talk about? Like giving people their life back if they feel terrible with something just relatively as simple as stimulating a nerve in their body. For me, that's that I would call that juice. That juices me up when I think about that. How you can radically give someone their entire life back with something that is actually quite relatively simple. It's not like Kelly Owens didn't change her diet. She didn't have to do some extreme, she didn't have to go carnivore or keto or any of this other stuff that people kind of play around with and can get really hurt. She didn't have to do extreme diet. She didn't have to do 1 meal a day. She didn't have to take extreme pills. She didn't have to do all kinds of like talk therapy for 10 years to release the trauma to do it. No, she just stimulated her vagus nerve and it wiped out all these symptoms. So that's why I'm here, because I think there's something to this for sure. And also why I'm considered a subject matter expert in this, because I've been doing it for now 5.5 years in the vagus nerve, but 12 years in neural stimulation. So there's definitely something cool going on there for sure. Anyway, so I'll move on. Thank you so much. You just wrote a really big long message, and I wanted to make sure that we talked about that. Phyllis shared, it feels like I'm physically stuck in fight or flight again, recovering from surgery as well. Do have pain as well, so that could contribute. Yeah, I mean, Phyllis, definitely. I don't know. I don't know if we have anything on the calendar, but if you want to schedule that 15-minute call check-in, I'd love to take a look at some of this stuff, get you resourced. Probably would want to look at maybe the spleen again. A little bit more about the spleen can be really helpful. And they actually do, they do actually encourage you to do vagus nerve stimulation post-surgery so your body can recover faster. So there's definitely some tools there that you have available. Jada, good to see you again, Jada. Lyme here. Okay, so Lyme disease. Thank you for the recognition for learning about this condition. You rock. Thank you so much. And yeah, honestly, I full credit doesn't go to me. Full credit goes to all the clients who just saw me posting about the vagus nerve and inflammation and all that stuff, who decided to, bring me on as one of their caregivers, as one of their advocates and one of their coaches, and work with them on their vagus nerve. And then, we see like some really tangible, significant improvements in their health overall from, I don't want to say just simply stimulating the vagus nerve. Of course, the work I do with people is a little bit more than just stimulate your vagus nerve and bye. We do actually look at your gut microbiome, and we also look at how to strengthen your neck muscles as well to restore that proper function and flow in your around your vagus nerve. So I don't just do vagus nerve stimulation. I do everything that is required to get you to feel your best, and not, again, like if you're in your 50s and you feel like you're 100 years old, that's not good. I want to invert that. I want you to feel like you're 50 years old when you're 100 years old. That's my objective here. And that solves for so many things. I mean, that means you're around longer to see your family, to see your grandkids grow up, to see maybe your great grandchildren, and to be alive to enjoy life a lot longer and a lot happier. And so that is what's possible. And I don't think that Lyme disease should be a death sentence for anybody. And I really don't believe that it is. I've worked with so many people who have had Lyme disease. Many of you watching have probably seen like a client of mine named Debbie Griffiths, who's going in other Lyme disease groups. She was getting an hour of sleep per night post Lyme. She started doing stimulation with her vagus nerve throughout the program that we run here. And she's like, I'm getting 6-7 hours a night now. So she's like, this is amazing. How, like, I've done, when you have Lyme, you're like doing $20,000 tests and treatments and going to Mexico and spending years and years and years and years and years and doing all this stuff, and you're missing some key components. And just because something costs $50,000 doesn't mean that it's more effective than something that could be $2,000. But definitely in our heads, we always assume like, oh, the Louis Vuitton $5,000 carrying bag is clearly better than the $100 purse. I was at a business mastery event once, and this woman stood up and she's like, oh yeah, my purse is better. It's a Louis Vuitton, and it cost my husband $5,000. And Tony Robbins was like, somebody else with a bag, stand up. And so she's like, holds her, kind of a pink flashy purse. And Tony's like, how many inner compartments does yours have? And she's like, oh, it has 4 inner compartments. It's got a zipper. It's the same size, if not a little bit bigger. It's got handles. It's got everything that the Louis Vuitton bag has. And he's like, how much you pay for that? She's like, $50. And he's like, well, geez, the $50 bag has more storage compartments than the Louis Vuitton bag, but yet you still went for the Louis Vuitton. And he's like, why? And she's just like, because it's more expensive. That's it. And it's like, so especially with Lyme disease, people are getting like ripped off big time. It's pretty crazy. But anyway, so yeah, I do have a lot of clients who have Lyme disease for sure. And we do get really good results for them too. So anyway, you're in the right place. So that's good to know. Cool. And then more validation. It sounds like, okay, so video looks fine on your end. Tribe, you are seeing a little bit of a glitch on the video. I did try to fix it. I haven't seen anything lately. So I might have resolved the streaming issue. I'm just not 100% sure. Oh my God, I'm getting like so many emails right now. Will you stop it? Emails? Okay, good. Okay, everything looks good. Okay. Yes, Anne-Marie Williams, there is a choline supplement you can rub into your skin. It's actually the one that we use in our program when we do vagus nerve stimulation. We use a product called Pure PC by Quicksilver Scientific, and it's phosphatidylcholine, and you rub it onto the skin, and then you actually apply the stimulator on top of that. Otherwise, it doesn't penetrate into the skin. You have to have the right kind of tool. That the process we're taking advantage of is called phonophoresis. So you can look that up. Let's see, Nina, why kind of doctor puts a vagus nerve stimulator in? Nina, I recognize you. You've been around for a long time. It's good to see you again. Okay, what kind of doctor? It could be an ear, nose, and throat doctor, an ENT. It could be a neurologist. You would just go to your doctor, go to your primary care doctor and say, hey, I really want to explore getting a vagus nerve stimulator implant. That's what you would say. And I have coached people on those free calls that I do on exactly the right hospitals to go to, what type of doctors to go to, and what to say to get the implant done. And just, again, guys, full disclosure, I make no money on recommending implanted VNS devices. I probably should, because I could probably make a load of money on that if I wanted to, but it's just not my real interest. But yes, if you do, if that is something that you want to explore, I absolutely do know a lot of people who do these implants. I've met with them personally. I know them at Stanford, at Mayo, all over the country. So I can help you at least, explore that in the best way possible. So good question. Good. Thanks, tribe. Thanks, Phyllis. Good. Okay. Yeah. A neurosurgeon. Jada, you are on top of it. You got it. You beat me to the punch. Andy, Lyme, MCAS, need to taper benzo. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. Oh, and dysautonomia. Okay. Got it. Okay. All right. So now with that all out of the way, let's talk about, let's just talk a little bit more about Lyme disease. So Lyme disease is complex typically. And so, again, key thing about how I run the principles that I'm bringing to these types of live calls is not to make blanket recommendations to claim that I know everything and all things. Yes, I do have a lot of experience in this kind of stuff, and I've worked one-on-one with Lyme patients with vagus nerve stimulation, and I have personally, in their case, in their care, seen substantial improvements where they didn't get that kind of improvement over, 5 years of working in the more traditional ways. Okay. And that even includes flying to Mexico and getting stem cell treatments and using ionic foot baths and detoxing and through their feet and all kinds of stuff. Right. Those things get, some of them have results, some of them don't. The kind of stuff that I typically do gets results really pretty much very quickly. And it really just stems from the fact that the way I approach these things from a very logical, rational way, from first order principles, and really just try to ask, is what we're being told about how this thing works, is that true or is it not? Is the paradigm helpful or is it hurting patients? And so oftentimes with Lyme, I do believe that look, if Lyme was just an easy thing to cure, then this wouldn't even be a subject of interest for anybody. I would have 0 clients with Lyme because clearly that would have been treated already. So there's a tangible need for it. Phyllis, that's a good question. I'll post that later. Phyllis, go to the ultrasound group, the ultrasound vagus nerve stimulation, the private one. I post a lot of the videos in there, so that's where I would go for that. But anyway, going back to Lyme. So Lyme, let's just say my general understanding is that you go to Maine for the summer, you walk in tall grass, a tick bites your skin, and you get Lyme disease and Bartonella, because these ticks carry a lot of diseases, and maybe there's a bioweapon concern. And why isn't the government taking it seriously? It's like they're just kind of leaving people on their own to have to basically go into medical debt trying to solve for Lyme when people are getting really sick. And I don't even think until Justin Bieber went out publicly and said, I'm really sick from Lyme disease, did people start to take it more, that people started to take it more seriously, right? So Lyme disease is absolutely a real thing. Shouldn't be treated like some kind of a phantom illness or whatever. And it's relatively difficult to treat. That's true. Now, a general principle to consider when it comes to a viral infection or a bacterial infection or any kind of external threat to the human body is that we have to consider Lyme. Let's just look, it would take me years to get through this if every time I say Lyme, Bartonella, and co-infections. So I'm just going to say Lyme, But just assume when you hear me say that I do also understand that there's Bartonella and a lot of co-infections, and it does get extremely complex, and there's a large cascade of things that you're more susceptible to. So you can even catch viral infections from other non-Lyme related things like herpes and have all kinds of stuff can happen there. So I'm just going to say Lyme in a little kind of a square box on the top, and hopefully we can smooth that over from here on out. Okay, fair enough? Okay, cool. So Lyme disease is an entity that is a living being. Its primary interest is to survive and to not die. So if you just look at the prime directive of all living entities on the planet and in space maybe, but mostly on planet Earth that we know of, have the prime directive to get resources, to reproduce, to grow, and to avoid dying. Pretty simple, right? We can all see that, right? Ant colonies, bee colonies, viral colonies, human beings, all these things. Lyme is the same way. So when Lyme gets into your body, the first order of business is that if your body, your human body, so like you'd say like, okay, so who is the limey, right? Okay, so let's say Andy, okay? You didn't use the word limey, somebody else did. Let's see, I think it was just to be sure. Yeah, Jada said limey. So we'll just say, I don't want to, again, we're in such a sensitive era where people, if like I say you're a limey, you're like, I don't identify as a limey. I'm like, okay, whatever. So someone who has Lyme disease, their body, the host, the human body, wants to not allow an infection to happen. And the thing that stops that is called your immune system. Your immune system is regulated in large part by your vagus nerve. Now, macrophages and T cells and antibodies are produced mainly from your thymus right here in the chest and also in the spleen from macrophages. And those detect the presence of an infection, and then they start to create tumor necrosis factor alpha, TNF cascades, and interleukin cascades. That's why if you have a viral persistent infection, your body starts to produce the antibodies and the cytokines to go and attack the virus, but the virus can be really good at eluding detection and hiding deeper and deeper in your body in places that your immune system can't go, but they can still irritate you. So that causes this almost infinite cascade of inflammation to build, because your immune system thinks that, well, if I can just create enough inflammation, I can kill the virus. But too much inflammation starts to kill your own healthy cells. And that's through a process called apoptosis, where your own body starts to attack normal, healthy cells, while the Lyme disease is hiding away in certain areas. And actually, Lyme disease typically, guess where the Lyme virus tends to reside? This is actually a really well funded and well-explored area of research called the vagus nerve infection hypothesis. I'll say it again. There is a scientific hypothesis called the vagus nerve infection hypothesis. You can just go Google that. Not now, but after this video is done, because we're going to expand on what this means. And there's two people primarily involved. A woman named Dr. Amy Prohl, P-R-O-A-L, Prohl, and another doctor named Dr. Van Elzacker. I'm not going to spell his name, but Dr. Van Elzacker. And he's the guy who popularized the vagus nerve infection hypothesis. Vagus nerve infection hypothesis was discovered after he was able to do autopsies on patients with herpes, severe herpes infection, and also on Lyme disease patients. And he found that the biggest accumulation of the Lyme and other co-infection viruses was in the vagus nerve in the cervical distance in the neck, which is the least likely area for anyone to treat. So there was another doctor named Dr. Klinghardt, Klingart, Dr. Klinghardt, and he's based out of the Washington State in the United States, near Seattle. He found that was, he came across that hypothesis, and he said, how can we personally treat Lyme disease that's building up in the neck, in the vagus nerve? Because remember I said that Lyme is an entity that has to survive and not die. Lyme disease does not care about your general health. Lyme disease needs you to just barely be alive and not be able to fight back in order for it to basically suck you dry, both physically, energetically, spiritually, and financially. So Dr. Klinghardt looked at what are the actual treatment options for ridding the neck region of these viral pockets of Lyme disease. And he found that patients who were going in for standard carotid artery scans to see if there was any plaque buildup in their jugular and carotid artery, was that they were having an effect that was completely removed from anything else that they were doing. So basically in the neck, when they did ultrasound, normal diagnostic scanning with ultrasound, it's pulsing on top of the vagus nerve. And they found that patients who also had Lyme disease were getting minor detoxing effects, but feeling really good for weeks after that single carotid artery scan. So that they started looking into it more, and they found some of the work that I've been involved in that showed that if you stimulate neurons with ultrasound, and this is work that goes all the way back to the 1940s and 50s. So this is a well-known effect of ultrasound, that you can stimulate nerves and actually stimulate the lymphatic cleaning process. So, lymph nodes in your neck, those when exposed to ultrasound. Yeah, Barb, this is live right now. I'm here. Hey, I can see you. Good to see you. That's me. We're live. Good. Welcome. So when nerves are exposed to ultrasound, the lymphatic network goes on overdrive, which is good, especially if you have the presence of Lyme disease. So it gives it like a newfound sense of purpose and a newfound sense of energy. And it starts to go, oh, it's like Lyme disease is able to put a trance over your immune system. Let me say that again. Lyme disease as an entity that is dead set on survival has probably evolutionarily developed some pretty advanced features, or maybe it was a bioengineered weapon, I don't know. But that's not the subject of today's video to discover that. Anyway, what we do know is that Lyme is pretty darn smart, and it can elude immune death. So it puts your lymphatic system under a deep trance. It goes, sleep, sleep, no thinking. Just like entrances your lymphatic system to not go hog wild and kill the Lyme disease. But when you expose the lymph to ultrasound, then the lymph basically snaps out of it, and they go, oh my God, those guys are wolves in sheep's clothing. They're not normal. They shouldn't be here. And they start using those white blood cells and wrapping around the Lyme disease, Bartonella, and co-infections. As I already said, we're obviously including all those because they're not naturally supposed to be there. And your immune system does know how to find and fight and attack and kill Lyme, Bartonella, and co-infections. But they also have mechanisms to fight your immune system from responding. So ultrasound tends to activate the lymph to then go and attack it in the most important area, which is in your neck. That's where they found. Yeah, right, Jada, you got it. And everybody knows that too. Every Lyme person will tell you they feel like they have a brain fog. And that's not because there's fog in your brain. It's because these viruses have developed this is where you even have to accept that there's probably some, something to this mystical sense of single-celled organisms not being as stupid as we've been led to think. And that when you have large colonies, you have colony intelligence. Like, just think of those big ant, those ant colonies that go under the ground. It's made up of individual tiny ants, but they're able to build entire massive mega cities. There's no central brain, but you have this collective emergent intelligence with many of one singular repeating thing. And that's what Lyme disease is. And it will put your body into a trance so that you won't fight back, and you'll basically just become the host body for it to feed on forever and ever and ever while you get sicker and sicker and sicker. But it doesn't benefit if you totally die. Lyme disease fails if you actually are dead. Lyme disease wins if you're so impaired that you're just in bed eating minimally, not being able to move, not being able to exercise, not being able to think, not being able to watch a live video of a guy who's an expert on the vagus nerve who actually has, explored successful treatments for Lyme disease, right? And Lyme disease would be telling you right now, if you had that full blown in your head, this is too much. No, it'd say, oh no, Jada, your brain, it's too foggy. You can't follow what Sterling's saying, and it must not be true, and don't go there. The Lyme will talk to you like that. And of course it's going to say, uh-oh, we don't want her actually understanding anything that's happening here. And then you get to that, you get to that really big issue. So anyway, so Lyme disease puts a spell on your body. The best treatment that I've seen is basically is waking your body back up, knocking yourself out of that trance-like state. And if you didn't watch, if you saw my video yesterday on the benefits of music and sound and inspirational things for your brain, was anybody able to do that, by the way? You guys got the video. And actually, I don't know if Sue Filbert, are you here, by the way? If you are, let me know, because I tried your question. Would it be helpful to do the Hour of Power audio at nighttime? And I did, and it was beautiful, because it's not all about just walking, but it does get you into a state of gratitude. And I remember this time in the Hour of Power, I'm saying where you affirm out loud, I am so grateful for my wife. I'm so grateful for her love and the love we share. And my partner is actually over at a wedding over on the East Coast this week for Memorial Day with one of her friends, and I wasn't able to join on that one just because I'm so busy. But Hour of Power at the end of the day is beautiful. You get to reflect on the whole day, and you get to kind of process what the day was. So yeah, anyway, show of hands, was anybody able to do the Hour of Power that we talked about yesterday? Sue, if you are here, I want to thank you for making that recommendation. But yeah, so stuff like the Hour of Power, the audio, helps to wake you up out of that trance so that you can start fighting back against what's not supposed to be there. And so so sound in a lot of ways is a really good way to fight back. But it's not like this, it's not the sound that's doing the killing. It's the sound that's waking your body up, your neurology up, your immune system, your lymphatic system. It's waking it up to go do what it already knows innately how to do. It's just that the Lyme disease is pretty dang smart. We can admit that there's something of a higher level of intelligence with Lyme disease than, I think even the medical profession can even comprehend at the same time. And it's probably the same thing with what else, which 2019, 2020 lockdowns, the coof. There's something pretty darn intelligent about that too. So let's not discount the fact that, your body is a distributed intelligence. Your vagus nerve is a very smart system too. I mean, short of having a vagus nerve, how do you feel love and bliss and God, and how do you meditate on that and have enlightenment? You can't have a Kundalini awakening without a vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is that access, that conduit. So while it can give you so much, it isn't the most robust in defending against engineered bioweapons that were intentionally designed to knock out your vagus nerve. So if I were going to look at that and say, well, what should I do? I'd say, well, start stimulating your vagus nerve. And the first thing I would do would be what we talked about yesterday in yesterday's live video, which is using the Hour of Power audio. And just listen to it for the first few seconds, the first 5 minutes. It just goes right into it. And it's happy, it's exciting, it's motivating, and it wakes you up. It fills you up with joy and gratitude and just good feelings. So sound has a unique power to activate your vagus nerve. So, so yeah, again, on that primary question of why we're here right now is looking at, can the vagus nerve support your recovery? Yes. In the cases of Lyme disease, it absolutely can support your recovery. Many of you watching probably have seen Debbie Griffiths, who is a client of mine right now, that she's had a tremendous transformation from Lyme-induced insomnia that happened many years ago. And she was only getting, it affected her sleep so terribly. She was getting 1 hour of sleep per night. 1 hour. Raise your hand if you don't believe you could survive on 1 hour a night. She's been doing it for years. She started with our program day number 1 of stimulating her vagus nerve, not injecting stem cells up her butt, not doing, weird laser therapies or putting her feet in a bath of battery acids that the water turns brown, tricking you into thinking that you've sucked all the dark toxins out of your feet, which is absolutely a scam, by the way. She didn't have to do any of that. She just followed my protocols and started stimulating her vagus nerve. And guess what? She's getting 6-7 hours of deep REM sleep every single night. Pretty simple. Pretty darn simple, I would say. Nina, okay, so I know I'm talking about the program. Maybe I'm jumping a little bit ahead. I like to get people to go through the 5-day challenge first. I'm not trying to push the program on anybody at all. We don't need people signing up for it if they don't need it. I like to make sure that everybody has all the details about it. But I don't want to get off track from the core message of what this video is about, which is for people who have Lyme disease, benzodiazepine taper, and emotional trauma to release. So I'll do another video at another time on that. For the time being, we do have a 5-day challenge. That's a free challenge. I believe it's going to be happening in 2 weeks. So we'll be doing a 2-week multi-day event. We'll be talking more about this kind of stuff and exploring what the program could look like and all that kind of stuff. But thank you so much for asking. I really do appreciate that. I'd say the 5-day challenge is going to get you there. And then also I'll just send, here, just so I don't want to get too off track from the video, but could you send me a message? I can't click off here because it'll mess up the stream. But yeah, just Nina, send me a message. I'll get you some more information on that. So yes, the question for Lyme disease is that absolutely your vagus nerve is a key aspect of treating Lyme. Now let's move on to another one because I know that a lot of other people are dealing with benzodiazepines. Now benzodiazepines are basically a pharmaceutical grade, how would I call it? Pharmaceutical grade alcohol. Benzodiazepines work on the exact same GABA receptor system as what drinking alcohol does. So if you have anxiety, if you can't sleep, a doctor will typically prescribe to you some type of benzodiazepine like Xanax, or there's just a ton of benzodiazepines. So I'm not going to go through all of them. The mechanisms are all very similar. So what you see is that in cases of alcoholism, that withdrawal from alcohol can typically induce really bad, can induce some really bad issues, essentially. And you do not want to be on the wrong side of a benzodiazepine taper gone wrong. If you withdraw from alcohol completely, people can start to have seizures and go blind. And guess what? So, again, we're looking at these correlations, okay? Correlations. So benzodiazepines are just a drug form of alcohol. Because when if you're anxious, does drinking a couple shots of alcohol kind of help calm the nerves? Yes. And taking a Xanax absolutely calms someone down. But you do not at all ever want to get onto that bandwagon, on that train of Xanax. That's a very bad idea. I would highly discourage you, if you are ever handed a pill that says benzodiazepine, or if it's a benzodiazepine at all, please do not get on it. If you're already on it, then you're in that situation. And so let's talk about what you would do if you had a benzodiazepine issue. So we actually do have a client named Marcy Grice. She was on benzos for 5 years. She tapered off of them. It also destroyed her sleep. She did join the program, and after her first night and on her third night, she was again getting a full 6 hours of sleep with 1 hour of deep sleep and 1 hour of REM sleep. Her life has transformed significantly in just I believe, 9 weeks since she started the program. But literally, she saw results on day number 1, and that's a benzodiazepine specific issue. Now, keep in mind, her benzodiazepine damage came from tapering a little bit too fast, and then taking the benzodiazepines, which worked at first for a few months, but then stopped working, so that her prescribing doctor, his recommended fix was, well, let's try another benzodiazepine. And so that might have worked for a little bit longer, but then it stopped working. And so she was being cycled through many different benzodiazepines, and then also sleep medications like Ambien. And so that just put her in a situation where she's a mother, she has children that she's got to take care of that are young. She's like unable to work, unable to care for the things that are most important for her. And so, from day before she started with my protocol with vagus nerve stimulation, she wasn't even sure if she was going to be able to go to like a Sunday baseball game for her children. And by week 2 in the program, she was at that baseball game, watching her kids on the field, yelling like any mom wants to. And it was literally because she focused on her vagus nerve. She didn't fly down to Mexico to have stem cells injected in her neck. She didn't go, sting herself with honeybees. She didn't go on an extreme carnivore diet. She didn't do any of those things. She focused on stimulating her vagus nerve, and she got those kinds of results. So this kind of stuff doesn't have to be extremely expensive or extremely hard or risky or unsafe. Like, again, injecting non-approved therapies into your body or trying extreme restriction diets can really hurt you. Even going to the extreme other end with diets to going full vegan can give you B12 vitamin deficiency and cause issues. Now, of course, on the internet, are you going to read stories like, oh, I went full carnivore and I only ate like raw meat every single day for 6 months and I was completely healed? And it's like, yeah, okay, thank you for your anecdotal story. I have just as many anecdotes of people doing a red meat, full-on carnivore diet who developed Crohn's and ulcerative colitis and then cancer of their rectum and had to get their colon cut out of their body because they followed a carnivore diet. So if we're going with anecdotal, stories to prove that one thing works or the other, which anecdote are you going to be like, oh yeah, that one, that's the one I'm going to pay attention to and not pay attention to the other one. You don't see that kind of stuff with stimulating your vagus nerve ever. It's very straightforward. So yeah, so for benzodiazepine tapering, you should, if you're on a benzodiazepine, hopefully you can be exploring a taper. If you aren't on a benzodiazepine at all, but you're still having the issues of a taper from years ago or months ago, then stimulating your vagus nerve is probably a really good idea. And I say that as again, all I am is just a dude wearing a hat, and it says mission on the front of it. And I'm wearing a t-shirt, and I have an Oura ring, and I've got a nice microphone, and I'm streaming on the internet, and I'm losing my voice a little bit because I've been talking a lot. And I happen to be a subject matter expert in ultrasound vagus nerve stimulation. And I'm a subject matter expert as recognized by people who work as the regulators with the FDA in the United States. So that's a pretty, I think that's a pretty big distinction to have, that people who work on medical technology, who regulate medical technology, call me up when they need questions answered about the therapeutic benefits and potentials of stimulating the human vagus nerve with ultrasound. So that's just me. So don't listen to me other than my experience. And if, again, on other videos and other influencers all over the internet, they're just going to tell you carnivore is the way to go, and if you don't believe me, you're stupid. That's a really bad way to do it. The main takeaway you should have from here is just to understand that remember, we're starting from a core principle of, like I said, benzodiazepines are a pharmaceutical version of alcohol. That is the one-to-one. They really do work on the same exact receptors. Alcohol, you drink and you have to be 21, or you take Xanax and you only have to be 13 or even younger, and they'll put you on Xanax or some benzodiazepine. Funny how they get around that whole 21-year-old restriction. Interesting. So when you quit alcohol after 20 years of continuous drinking, your body can begin to have seizures. Guess what they use to treat seizures in epilepsy patients? Vagus nerve stimulation. So the best way to fix the most severe life-threatening symptoms and side effects of withdrawal from alcohol, which is exactly the same thing as a benzodiazepine, but just in a different form because it works on the GABA receptor network in your brain, is epilepsy is treated when your body, epilepsy, seizures, when your body starts to shake, okay? For those who don't know what that looks like, they do vagus nerve stimulation, and that completely fixes the problem. Vagus nerve stimulation in the case of epilepsy and seizures is a complete fix, and they don't even have to take the epilepsy medication that they have to take before. So that should tell you something, that there's a similarity between the way that the vagus nerve works in the case of benzodiazepines. And that's why I believe that when I work with clients and they're stimulating their vagus nerve, is that they see those same types of remission experiences from the downsides of quitting benzodiazepines, which is also what alcohol essentially is. So you see that kind of that like beautiful symmetry between alcohol, benzos, seizures, sometimes seizures, not all the way. I don't see a lot of seizures with benzodiazepine tapering, but I see a lot of like your health just goes down there. You develop a lot of vagal nerve issues. But the treatment being vagus nerve stimulation, and it comes into complete harmony, almost like a big heart shape kind of thing. So how cool is that? So anyway, that's benzos. Now let's move on. Let me just check questions. Any questions about any of that stuff? We will give you guys the opportunity as well at the end of the video to do that too. Oh, I see a lot of comments. Good. Yes, the benzos hell. They had me on 8 meds. 4 of them were for benzos. I dropped them all on May 25th of last year. Vagus nerve regeneration is key to healing. Totally agree. Yes, have failed. Benzos. Do not do benzos. Thank you, Barb. See, I told you. I told you. Remember on our onboarding call when you started in the program that if at least at the very end, because again, Marcy, her experience with benzos, 5 years destroyed her ability to show up for her family. You unfortunately are 5 times that. So yeah, guys, it's really just math. As clear cut as it is, like alcohol, epilepsy, vagus nerve treatment, benzodiazepines, vagus nerve degeneration, vagus nerve stimulation, and healing, is that, yeah, there's a difference between 5 years of continual benzodiazepine poisoning and then 25 years. But I told you from the get-go, if what your contribution could be, even in the first few weeks, first few months, is to be a loud voice to get people who may not be on benzodiazepines, who may be pushed it onto them, or even the people watching like Nina and everybody else and Jada, who maybe you have a family member, somebody in your near circle, a friend who tells you like, hey, I'm thinking about going on benzodiazepines because my doctor's telling me it'll fix me. You can be like, oh my God, please God, no, look into that way more. It's not what you think. See, so Barb, there can be tangible things that you can do by warning people that this stuff is not, it's not a joke. This isn't candy. It's not benzodiazepine, harmless, no side effect candy. And you are now being able to take people to that conclusion of do not do benzos. So there are real advantages for showing up in that way. And I do appreciate you for saying that. Yeah. And of course, you got sold into a stem cell injection, $5,000 thing, which did really do not that much. Maybe it did something, but not $5,000 worth, right? So yeah, don't go with benzos, and stimulate your vagus nerve. Yes. And, Barb, if we had communicated 5 years ago, or more, right? When we started the program 5 years ago, and I was on YouTube, not YouTube, but Facebook every single day. And look, it's just, it's all luck of the draw. The god Mark Zuckerberg and his algorithms determine if I get on these videos and I talk, if anybody hears it or sees it. So if you guys are like, gosh, I wish I could have heard about this 5 years ago, then put yourself in the shoes of Barbara, the next Barbara in 5 years ago, who is also right now in the midst of a benzodiazepine withdrawal nightmare. Invite others that you see to this Facebook group. Tell them about this Facebook group. Tell them, listen to Sterling. Do not get on this stuff, first of all. And if you're having an issue with it, you do need to focus on your vagus nerve, because this stuff works, guys. Like I feel like I have magic in my hands and the ability to know protocols to work on people with some really bad issues. And so I reflect on this every day. I'm like, God, I'm really blessed that I have the tools and the know-how and the ability and the grit and the determination and the discipline to just show up and work with people and get them through these kinds of hard situations. So anyway, thank you so much for saying that, Barb. I appreciate it. Nina, you had said took you 2 years to get off benzodiazepines and antidepressants. It was hell. Weighed out my meds and tapered very, very slowly. So crazy. These are legal. Yeah, I know. It is kind of crazy. Like, are we the crazy ones? Like, you're all sharing what are clearly true stories. Nobody can deny that there are some real bad side effects to these things. And yet they're just given out like gangbusters to millions of people. And also notice, I don't see, other than me, okay, maybe I'm missing something. I think we have Dominic. Now, I'm not here to assume people's genders, but I would say we're pretty substantially female in the audience today. Many are being prescribed benzodiazepines. Is this like a war on women or something like this? It's crazy. Now, of course, yeah, men get put on benzodiazepines, but it's so many women here who are just getting destroyed by these things. So yes, I don't know how it's legal. I don't think it is. I don't think it should be, but whatever. I just wish I would have found you before I attempted any taper, because it takes a very long time to get off of benzos. GABA receptors are destroyed. Yeah. But even though now you're, on that journey, it's all we can really do in life is just lay out what are some first principle ways of looking at things. Look, analyzing first principles and second and third order analysis, which is what I did. That benzos are chemically identical to alcohol. That alcohol withdrawal causes seizures that can kill you. And that in epilepsy cases, stimulating the vagus nerve fixes seizures. And also, they're now using vagus nerve stimulation in withdrawal from alcohol, because they found that, oddly enough, that's an extremely effective treatment for withdrawing from alcohol. And also now they're looking at using vagus nerve stimulation, and this is an FDA-approved therapy now. They're using vagus nerve stimulation on patients who are experiencing opioid withdrawal, because it helps them get off of it with almost none of the withdrawal side effects of quitting heroin. How funny. So that's on that side. I'm like, okay, these are first order principles. Benzodiazepines, you're tapering, you're having withdrawal symptoms that are way severe, like a lifelong alcoholic would have. If you drank alcohol for 20 years, you guys know that that's really bad. Nobody would say yeah, just keep on drinking alcohol. That's fine. You're fun. You're cool at parties. And if you knew what it could do to someone, okay, let's say you have a good friend and they're a big drinker. They're a party animal. Hey, he's so fun at these parties, man. Who am I to tell him hey, there could be some consequences for you in the next 20 years. But you're like, nah, but he's fun. He's a party animal. he's not going to be a party animal when he is physically dependent on alcohol to survive and not to have seizures. Okay? So I would be concerned about someone who's an alcoholic taking it every day. Why are we not as concerned about benzodiazepines, which are basically doing the exact same type of thing? And Barb is a shining example of what 25 years of being on benzodiazepines, because your doctor say, well, it's doing something good, and I guess you're just going to be on it for the rest of your life. But she's like, I kind of want to taper off. And if you don't do it exactly right, and even if you do it exactly perfect, you can still get screwed up. So again, if they use stimulation of the vagus nerve on this side of the equation, then, which is the exact same GABA receptor mechanism, then let's do it on the benzodiazepine side. And, we've done that and we see the good effects. Marcy, for instance, is one shining example of that actually working. So yes, if you are tapering, get your vagus nerve stimulated now, early, don't delay. Okay. So anyway, how long do you think I'd have to taper 25 milligrams of Xanax a day for a year? I mean, you have to get into like tapering it and crushing up the pill into a liquid and then using drops of it. Like we're talking like almost tiny dropper amounts. There is a specific website. I don't remember the exact name of it, but you can look it up on Google, and it's like how to taper off of benzodiazepines. And they give you all of the instructions for it. So, you will have to follow some type of a very, consistent taper to get off of these things, 100%. And I wish you the best of luck. And if you want the support of having a vagus nerve that's healthy and happy when you are trying to taper, I would recommend it. Like if they're giving it, guys, is heroin, can I say heroin on internet? Am I allowed to say that word on a Facebook Live? We don't have any kids watching, I can guarantee you that. And I'm not endorsing it. But if you're on, opioid medications, we all know it's very difficult to kick that habit, right? So why did the FDA just approve using VNS therapy in cases of severe withdrawal to help people get off of those medications? So I'd say, yeah, if you are either on full benzos, you're in the current midst of a taper, you're getting close to the end of it, or you're experiencing the side effects of having done a taper, even to the T, but still had lasting symptoms, then get yourself, I would say this, join our 5-day challenge. We have a 5-day challenge. That's what Marcy joined. That's what Barb joined. That's what Shar joined. That's what Lori joined. That's what many of the women who are watching here joined. You'll listen to me for 5 days in a row. We'll talk about how to stimulate your vagus nerve, what that looks like, how to implement it, what the protocol looks like, everything like that. And then how to join a program if you want, but you are not obligated to join anything at all if you do join that. There's no obligation. It's offered completely. The 5-day challenge is completely a free challenge. You can join it. We just ask that you show up and you watch and you learn. So yeah, I would say definitely do that. Let's see. Okay, cool. All right, moving on. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I see a lot of this. This is definitely, a lot have been hurt by benzodiazepines for sure. Good. And Barb is saying, I'm warning people every day. I just could get out of the pain myself. Absolutely. Totally agree. Lori, I warn everybody about Xanax also. Yeah, it sucks. Lexapro also since 2008. Benzos are poison. It is a war on women. And because doctors thinks it's all in our head because we are women. Yeah, it's fucked up. It's really fucked up. Like, what else can be said, Wendy shared, my son prescribed Klonopin at age 15, terribly addicted for 14 years, pure hell. He's doing better, but it truly was a living hell. Doctors are clueless. Yeah, I mean, what the hell? How are doctors not hearing from their patients that, like, dude, like if, back in the 1930s and 40s, when people would have a when people were mentally not fully there, which can happen, they would do something called trepanning, which they would take a big metal rod and stick it up here and squish around your prefrontal cortex and turn you into a freaking coma patient, basically. And doctors did that for a long time until they realized, like, this is not an ethical procedure. Benzos aren't that. We don't trepanate, psychiatric patients anymore, but we're still giving women a bunch of benzodiazepines. When is that going to change? Like, what did it have to take for people to go, maybe we shouldn't shove a rod of metal and scatter and just slice up your brain as a therapy? It just doesn't make any sense. Clearly, guys, can I give you a little secret? If you want to understand some of the things that make the world move, look at how the money moves things, okay? We talk about like having filters on the way the world works and thinking how does money play into this system? Ask yourself that, and you'll probably kind of get to a relatively good answer. That's about all I'll say. I'm not going to give any more information than that, but yeah. Cymbalta hurts worse. Facebook group helped me taper. Good. All meds is not just Cymbalta, benzos too. That website I think is on there somehow. Yeah, somewhere I know. Good. Yeah, totally. There are specific groups that are dedicated to benzo tapering. Definitely recommend you do that. Yeah. Also on YouTube, there are also compounding pharmacies that will compound the benzo taper for you so that you have it perfect, like down to like the tiniest amount. So, you're not in your kitchen, like chopping up pills and dropping little kernels of a benzo into a little liquid vial or anything like that. So consider a compounding pharmacy to help you with that taper process. Those are services that exist. That is, given the risks of doing it wrong, I would say it's a good idea to do that. VNS assists in the tapering because it keeps your vagus nerve more active, which means that you don't go into a fight or flight state and you don't start producing inflammation and basically destroying your entire body. So yeah, tapering shuts down. So also, let's go back to the alcohol example. When you look at the vagus nerve in the throat of people who drink alcohol, who are alcoholics, their vagus nerves are destroyed. They have deterioration all throughout the vagus nerve on both sides. So benzodiazepines have the exact same mechanism as alcohol. And if you look at the vagus nerves of someone who's been on benzodiazepines for 20 plus years, it has had a tangible deterioration of their vagus nerve. Now, I don't do vagus nerve stimulation. You'll notice that the name of the Facebook group is called Vagus Nerve Stimulation and Repair. Because if you're just stimulating your vagus nerve, you're just like doing electrical stimulation. All you're doing is just electrically stimulating your vagus nerve. And thus you are becoming dependent on the electrical tool. The stuff that we do in our program is we do lasting stimulation alongside the repair process to undo the damage that was inevitably done from Lyme, from benzodiazepines, and from lifelong trauma. So I would never join a program or just use a device that says, we're going to stimulate your vagus nerve, because there's lots of things. Did you know that smoking cigarettes can stimulate your vagus nerve, but it won't repair your vagus nerve? And putting electricity in your vagus nerve or putting electricity on your ear and just having it do that is only stimulating your vagus nerve. There's nothing at all in those pieces of technology that does anything to address myelin sheath destruction. And we have pictures here in the Facebook group of real men and women that died young and in their elder years who were alcoholics, and they sliced their vagus nerve right in half, and you can see a healthy person's vagus nerve and an alcoholic's vagus nerve. It is so much tinier and so much more deteriorated than the one from a healthy person. And so if benzodiazepines are, which they are, exactly a pharmaceutical grade version of alcohol, then what do you think that benzodiazepines are doing? If benzodiazepines have the exact same things, and we see tangibly that people who stimulate their vagus nerve severely lessen the impacts of tapering from benzodiazepines. So hopefully that answers your question. But yeah, Lori Mayo, yep, I think birth control is ruining us too. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, you're right, Nina. It's a hormone that's just messing with the whole brain. That information will be extremely useful in the toxicity group. Yeah, let's definitely try to get that call with Michelle or something like that. And I'm so just Anna, I am doing these videos live also on YouTube, so you guys can subscribe. I'll send later on. Let's see. Here I actually have the link to it. I'm gonna put the link to the YouTube video. That is the live version of this, so you guys can see that too if you want. And then you can share that with others. Most people aren't in my Facebook group, but a lot of people are on YouTube. Go figure. So we do also live stream to Facebook and YouTube at the same time. Anyway, okay, cool. I feel like we've covered benzodiazepines enough for now. It's absolutely deserving of a 5-hour long video, if I'm being honest, right? But as I promised earlier, I wanted to make sure that we do talk about the trauma release aspect of it. I won't give the trauma release thing too much time today. It's the whole idea of releasing trauma. Absolutely, it deserves its own video too. Just like benzodiazepines, just like Lyme disease, they all deserve their own 3-hour like full explorations. But I just wanted to cover a range of topics because these 3 areas were topics that came up the most in the last few days in the Facebook group. So I figured they're most relevant. They're at the top of people's minds. We might as well just directly answer those questions. So when it comes to trauma, let's first talk about what is trauma. Okay, so trauma can be a difficult word. Trauma can be triggering to use. I would say that the word trauma directionally looks at things that were emotionally horrifying that happened in the past, obviously. Usually the most severe types of trauma that can affect the vagus nerve are traumatic experiences that were usually sexual in nature or assault, sexually assault in nature, when usually a woman or a young girl was assaulted when she was between the ages of, a few months old up to 15, let's just say. Sexual assault can happen from any time in your entire life. The ones that have the most lasting impact is the closer it was to your youth. To the ages 1 through 4 are typically the biggest window where if sexual trauma occurs, and it can be one-time thing, it can be a lifetime thing, it can happen from the people you trust the most. It could be your father, it could be your mother, it could be your uncle, whatever, a friend, it's all kinds of weird shit. Not good. But so something traumatic happened, something bad happened. It caused your brain to not feel safe. It caused your neurology to feel like there was a constant threat. If I can't even trust my own parents to protect me mentally, emotionally, sexually, then who in the world can I trust? So naturally that creates this mistrust with not only people who are closest to you, but especially with people who are not close to you at all. Because if someone who is considered your blood relative can hurt you so badly, then what could someone who's a stranger on the street do to you? So it definitely warps your perceptions of people. And not everybody's like that, but you have to develop strategies to survive and to make you have to make the best case effort to make the right choices when you can. So that's in large part what trauma, there's the aspect of trauma. Now, trauma seems to reside physically in your body. Trauma doesn't just reside as a memory in your head. It also gets stored like into your body, and typically in your vagus nerve, actually, because I believe that your vagus nerve can store memory, like actual visceral somatic memories in your actual body. And so what happens there is that your vagus nerve can basically store emotional traumas all the way down at the very bottom into your pelvic region. So think about it. If the initiate of the trauma was something sexual in nature, then the area that would be the branches of the vagus nerve that go down to your reproductive organs, which, again, maybe ties back in with these birth control pills and what those are doing to people as well. So there's a lot of connections between again, there are a lot of connections out there that when you start to see the vagus nerve is the master connector. It is the key that connects. Why are so many people depressed? Why are so many people traumatized? Why do people behave the way they do? Because of the trauma. How are people getting sick? Why does it seem like it's a war on women? Because in a large part, it kind of is an attack on the female vagus nerve, which I believe, if your vagus nerve works, let's look at another thing. If your vagus nerve is working functionally and optimally, you're able to access states of joy and bliss and enlightenment, awakening, of acceptance and equanimity for yourself, for the world, and you can change the world substantially, and you don't get caught up in these guilt-tripping collectivist mobs when your vagus nerve works. But when you're in a fear state, and when you're angry and sad and guilt-ridden and shame-filled, you can get sucked into any vortex of negative energy or some consumerist capitalist gangbang, basically. Oh, you don't feel good? It's because you're not good and nobody likes you until you buy this makeup, or you buy this moisturizer, or you drive this car, not that car, buy this car, buy this bed, buy this outfit, buy this what, So fear is a sympathetic thing. Trauma is the way that usually men will force a woman into a fearful state to then be able to control her so that her vagus nerve doesn't work. Because when a person's vagus nerve works, they're free, they're open, they're, not easy to control, let's say. And it's easier to control the controllable than it is to control people who don't feel controllable. It's like if you're in a sympathetic, fearful, traumatized state, you're just like a sponge for the hook. Something hooks into you and starts pulling you. Oh my God, breaking news. On the other side of the planet, in this tiny little village, something bad happened. A volcano went off. And if you're highly traumatized, you're like, oh my God, oh. It's like, dude, that doesn't affect anything in your life, but you're giving it so much emotional energy of fear. Guys, look, I'm not being an asshole here. This is 100%. We all have seen people who want to respond in the most visceral way to things happening that are so far out of their control. And yeah, is it sad? Yes, when bad things happen, it is sad to think about. But I see people obsess over that which they cannot control. And I believe that is a result of those who have been traumatized. Just to say it as simple as that. So how do you untraumatize someone? You untraumatize someone by finding ways and strategies and pathways to shift them out of that sympathetic fight or flight, fear, traumatized, easy to control, easy to manipulate state, and you give them a pathway to walk systematically into a more of a parasympathetic, relaxed, calm, centered, rational, logical, blissful state of being, like more over here, and then they're less easy to control. So that's how you do it. And that's why, you always hear when you talk about the vagus nerve, it's the golden road that leads you to bliss, to equanimity. It's the road to awakening. It's the kundalini rising up. It's the phoenix rising from the ashes. It is the pathway to healing. The vagus nerve knows how to heal your deepest wounds. So it's not necessarily that you're releasing trauma. It's that you're activating your vagus nerve, because your vagus nerve knows what to do. Because let's go back to Lyme disease, for instance. Did I say it when I said at the very beginning of this video, if you didn't catch that, we went in depth about what Lyme disease is really as a viral infection, how it attacks the vagus nerve, and how by stimulating the vagus nerve, you allow your vagus nerve and your immune system to effectively fight back against the Lyme. Not once did I said that we're releasing the Lyme or that you're going to consciously learn how to operate your immune system like a remote control and go in there with your conscious brain and start attacking it. No, you don't have the ability to do that. You don't have the ability to micromanage the billion amounts of cells in your neck and body that can go fight Lyme disease. Your vagus nerve can micromanage that. So all you need to focus on is how do I get my vagus nerve to work today and also to repair it so that it can continue to fight the battle long after the virus has been killed and live to fight another day, because Lyme disease won't be the only virus that your body's exposed to. And we're exposed to bacteria and viruses and psychic forces that want to hurt us and put us into a state of fear every single day. That opportunity is always there. Something is always there on offer to try to upset you. It's all over the media. It's all over the news. It's in the music we listen to. We talked about this all yesterday. There's something that is going to try to get into your brain, and it's looking for those who are traumatized, who haven't figured out a way to walk the path. So I'm not saying you listening to me, I'm speaking to the conscious version. I'm speaking to that which is the entity of Barb, that which is the entity of Jada, okay? That which is the entity of you listening. And what I'm telling you is that what you need to do is focus on your relationship between you, the conscious you, and your vagus nerve, and do everything you can to heal your vagus nerve. Because wouldn't it be amazing if, when I asked at the very beginning of this call, of this video, so I said we're going to talk about Lyme disease, benzodiazepines, and releasing trauma. Tell me in the chat, which one of these three are ones that you're dealing with? Some of you wrote, I'm dealing with all three and more. And I've told you that vagus nerve stimulation can help your vagus nerve heal, repair, and go on the offensive against Lyme disease. That it can repair the tapering damage that can happen from benzodiazepines. And now I'm also telling you that if you stimulate your vagus nerve, you can give it the resilience to go and actually fight and ward off the energy of deeply held traumatic experiences. And I have a story for you to demonstrate this. I had a client back in 2019, still considered like an absolute doll, named Christina Helgevold. She joined our program. She's from Norway. She actually had what she presented with when she started the program. Her main symptom concern was gastroparesis. Okay? So gastroparesis, meaning she had no motility every morning. If she didn't do a coffee enema and the red light every single morning, she would be a few days away from massive organ failure. So she was in a really bad physical spot. She signed up for our program. We shipped her a VNS device all the way over to Norway. We mailed it all the way over there. She started using it. And within 1 week, because what we do with the VNS is that there are different locations of the body. You know, I do this with my neck a lot, but your neck is not the only place where your vagus nerve is. You guys know that, right? Your vagus nerve runs all the way through your entire body. So depending on the specific condition, you want to stimulate in that particular area. So in her case, we did one that was a specific location of the vagus nerve that regulates peristalsis, which is the movement of food matter through your body. Because gastroparesis was the complete absence and the lack of peristalsis. And it's really a bad situation. So we actually did a stimulation location that controls peristalsis. And that night, she not only had a full bowel movement, but she also had a traumatic release, a somatic shaking experience that lasted for about 30 minutes. So she's laying on her yoga mat in her bathroom, and she stimulates the VNS location that regulates peristalsis because she had a blockage there. She had a neurological blockage, not because of benzodiazepines, although she had been on benzodiazepines, so it could have played a role. And she did report viral infections like Lyme as well. But the symptoms were gastroparesis. and she had something stored down there. Whereas doctors would say, well, if something's pinched or something's not working. But in her case, here's what actually happened. She stimulated it, and within 5 minutes, her entire body started like doing this movement, like, the way a snake or an animal is like releases their trauma. That's called the traumatic release exercise. Her body just knew how to do it. She wasn't consciously controlling any of this. Her body's natural inherent intelligence started coming to work and working in her body and moving the energy around. And she started having her body temperature went up. She started sweating. She started kind of like shaking. She wasn't sure what was going on. She wasn't prepared for this, but her body knew what to do. And what happened was that after that 35 minutes, her body came completely into stillness. She laid there. She felt all that buzzing, nice feeling, that bliss through her body. She was completely still. And that was the last day that she ever had a problem with gastroparesis. Her life changed significantly. Even her POTS, which her doctors told her was completely unrelated to the peristalsis issue with gastroparesis, even that got resolved. Her husband owns a boat. With POTS, you sure as hell are not going to get on a boat that goes wee, wee. And guess what? If you go to her Facebook page today, you'll see her picture, big, huge smile on her boat. She's traveling all around the coast of Norway as we speak because it's the summer. And this is back in 2019. So she signed up early on. And, had she not, that would never have resolved. And, based on the grief that she had and she was carrying, I can't even say for sure if she would still be around in 2023 had we not gotten her the relief that she got back in 2019. She's awesome. She's here on Facebook still. You can go message her. She's living her fullest life in her 50s and 60s. That's about the age range where that kind of stuff is crucial. So can the vagus nerve support the recovery from trauma? Well, yeah. Well, here's the message that she sent me in the morning. The morning after that, she said, "Oh my God, Sterling, I realized I had this memory that I was repressing for most of my life, which is that when I was a teenager, 4 men raped me as a child. And I carried that trauma. And she had completely forgotten that had ever happened. She was storing that somewhere down in her body. And part of that movement and the activation of her vagus nerve through the stimulation and the protocol we provided her was the conduit that allowed that to vent up and out. And that was the releasing of the trauma, essentially. She was able to literally go and write it down. She's like, I didn't remember it, and I never told anybody, and I feel like I can safely tell you, Sterling, here. And now this is a turning point for me in the relationship between that event. And then also, that trauma got her into really bad romantic engagements. So when she was 18, her husband got her pregnant twice, then tried to kill himself, but failed, but made himself paralyzed. So she had to take care of her husband for, I believe, about 18 years while they raised the children. And he was in a wheelchair. She had to wipe his butt. She had to do all that stuff with a guy who hated her and told her that much every single day. So this is a highly traumatized woman from childhood, from her teenage years, in a very toxic relationship, raising children on a low income with a guy who hates her. And then guess what? After all 18 years of putting her blood, sweat, and tears and raising the family and taking care of her husband, then he finally does end up taking his own life and leaving her with nothing. And then here I come in 2019, 10 years later, after she's been grieving for that long and developing all of these medical issues. I mean, she was not living a very healthy life, for sure. Not by her own fault, but her body was just not working properly. Fortunately for her, she did get remarried to a really wonderful and very supportive man in her life. And he was, very supportive of anything that she could do to get her back to health. We really respect those figures in the lives of our clients who are there as support figures to encourage them and to help them keep on going. Because that 10 years of all of that without anybody else by your side is really difficult. And so I know a lot of you watching have other figures in your life that are supportive. And if you can tell them, show them some of the stories from what we've done and convince them, because if they're convinced and they believe that you believe that there's a fix here, then they'll go to the ends of the earth to support you. Because what your partner doesn't want to see you hurt. The thing is, it's really difficult for a partner that you love, who loves you, to see you in the state you're in, but it's even more difficult to even offer suggestions, because sometimes when people are so close to us, we can take it personally. And so the good thing with why is someone like me a good care person to bring on is because I care about you from a friend kind of perspective, but I can give you advice, and it's not an ego thing. It's just me as an expert in helping people with this stuff and knowing what the process looks like, where I can give that kind of advice, and also just, use the right technology to help support you through that journey, like we did with Christina Helgevold. So yeah, if you can go and find her out here on Facebook. She's still here on Facebook. She's still around. She's still absolutely in love with her life now. And that, again, like I said, that was 2 weeks after she got the VNS device in Finland. And then we did a whole, a few more months of that, of more of that work, supportive work. Now she's completely an independent, strong lady who happens to be married, who has a great support structure and lives a great life with children that she loves. So maybe that could be something that you do too. But that's basically to demonstrate to you that your vagus nerve absolutely is the thing that needs to be stimulated, the thing that needs to be activated in order for you to resolve some aspects of that trauma. Now, when I say resolve, she's not going back in time and changing what happened, because you can't. What happened happened. And what happened made you who you are today. And there can be good in that and there's bad in that too. But there's both. And so there's no amount of her going back and working through it that was required. What really was needed was to input energy into her vagus nerve to allow the vagus nerve to go handle the business. You get it? If your house is a mess, go hire, or if there's something that's a mess, you go hire a professional to go clean it up. You don't have to clean up every single mess on the planet yourself. Some people are more equipped to deal with the mess than you are, especially if the mess is in your body and your neurology and etc. Right? So you as a person who happened to be ill, who happened to get sick, may not be the best caregiver for yourself. I wouldn't recommend that you just try to be yeah, I know I'm tapering from benzos, or I have Lyme disease, or I have some severe trauma that I'm unable to work with. But yeah, I can chew this off all by myself. It's a really bad idea. I would just say I don't see a lot of people succeeding in it. I don't get raving reviews from people in the Facebook group who listen to me talk about this stuff and then say, okay, Sterling, I got you, but I don't want to do any of this. I don't want to stimulate my vagus nerve. I'm not going to change my diet. I'm not going to strengthen my neck. I'm not going to do any of this stuff. I read on this blog post that this one magical pill, this probiotic, is the thing. So I'm going to start doing that for the next 6 months. And you know what I never hear from them is, oh my God, Sterling, I'm so glad I took this one magical special pill. I started taking phosphatidylcholine, and all the trauma and all the Lyme disease is all fixed. That's not how it works. And if it is what worked, I would have told you about it, right? If that's what the one thing was, if it was some magical pill that could fix all of your problems, then I would want that. Because, I lost my sister to suicide many years ago. And if it were just down to one single pill, I would be on every roof of every building on the entire planet on TV all the time saying, this is the fix. It will fix all of your problems. But I don't even believe that there's one single thing you can do. And even if there were, wouldn't you agree that there's probably a strategy on how to effectively use it too? And that you can do better if you do it with multiple things. Combination therapies are far more effective than just thinking that this one single thing, like, oh, Sterling's just saying, I just got to stimulate my vagus nerve, and boom. Like I said, you can go out to a 7-Eleven and buy a pack of cigarettes, and because it contains nicotine, which activates the vagus nerve, you could factually start smoking cigarettes and technically be stimulating your vagus nerve. But is that healthy? Is smoking cigarettes, can that help calm you down? Yeah, that's why people smoke them. But who would recommend for someone with Lyme disease or benzodiazepine-induced neural damage or trauma that, yeah, stimulating your vagus nerve is a really good idea to fix all of these issues? No. You need to stimulate your vagus nerve in a way that's safe, that is side effect free, and can help repair the vagus nerve. Smoking cigarettes is only going to make it way, way, way worse. Okay? So again, be smart about this. This is your life that we're talking about, right? There are some specializations, there are some things that you're going to do in your lifetime that they're worth getting help with. They're worth doing it right, and not just like, oh, I read a blog, the 10 tricks to stimulating your vagus nerve, and they said I should hum. So I'm going to start humming. And if that works, great. If not, then I guess it wasn't my vagus nerve. It's like, no, that's not how it works at all. And besides the fact I've mentioned and alluded to a couple times, if we look at Lyme disease, is Lyme disease natural? Maybe. Could it have been a bioengineered weapon? Some people tend to think so. And just as I talked about with, the long LC, the COOF from 2020, do you really think that the bioengineers behind that were like, we're going to make this really bad thing that keeps people sick as a form of like biological warfare? And then they start looking into the news and they see, oh my God, did you know that that woman over in Maine, she just started humming and her Lyme was gone? How did we not factor that in to our biological weapon, that just humming or gargling with water could reverse the biological damage caused to the vagus nerve? Damn, man, I guess we really aren't worth the millions of dollars they're paying us per year to do this stuff. So no, of course not. No, oh yeah, I'm going to go hum for the next 12 months and I'll come back to you, Sterling, and I'll let you know if that worked. I don't think that's going to be a very good strategy. And I'm just telling you, I don't get messages from people from 12 months after they read something saying I should hum. If you're sick, humming is not going to cut it. If you're an 18-year-old young girl living in Bali as a social media influencer who's already drinking, fruit juice every day and getting a suntan and whatever, then yeah, maybe humming and tapping your forehead or something like that, and probably having sex every week, like every day, probably those things, and singing and humming and having fun, all those things are probably more than enough. I wouldn't try to sell them a vagus nerve stimulator. I'm not going to go sell an 18-year-old fitness model influencer with Botox in her face that you need a vagus nerve stimulator. There's no point in that. I would say try humming and sing and be young and have fun. You're going to keep your vagus nerve very healthy. So just do that. But there are some cases. You're 50, you're 60, you're 70 years old. You're dealing with half a decade of benzodiazepine-induced damage, Lyme disease, and childhood trauma that nobody taught you how to resolve. They just drugged you instead of helping you. Then I'd say, yeah, this probably needs some more delicate systems and a better strategy and tools that are not just humming. So anyway, so cool. Yes. But anyway, to just kind of wrap this all up, can the vagus nerve help with the recovery of all of these things? Yes. And I've given you these are real people. Their names have not been changed. You can go find them on Facebook. Marcy, Deb, and Christina. I've mentioned them throughout the call. And they're more than welcome to comment here. I don't put anybody on the spot and say, come and like the comment, because I never know exactly who, out of the 600 so people I've worked with, I don't always know exactly who I'm going to call. I don't script these out exactly. I just kind of have a general topic, and I'm just speaking off the cuff from what I know. So anyway, so that's that. But I'm going to go back to the questions here, into the chat. So let's see. Barb, perhaps. Yeah, Barb, let's talk about that on a call, right? I think that's more beneficial for us to chat about there. Jada, I do believe it was a bioweapon that they started using heavily during the Vietnam War. Yeah, I mean, totally possible. Again, I'm not saying one way or the other. To be fair, I probably haven't done a much research on that per se. Do I know that governments do that kind of stuff? Absolutely. Wasn't there a Tunguska experiment where they intentionally gave people AIDS and got them hooked on crack and stuff? Yes. So yeah, I would say 100%. 100% that kind of stuff happens all the time. So yes, if it was a bioweapon, it's probably very true. But anyway, so guys, thank you all so much for joining. I did mention the 5-day challenge. We do have another 5-day challenge happening, not this next week, but the week after next. So probably in about a week or so, in 8 days from today, we'll be doing a 5-day challenge. So I'm just going to put that in the chat. Register for the upcoming 5-day challenge. Barb, do me a huge favor. Let people know who are watching, if you're still here, is it worth signing up for the 5-day challenge? Yay, nay. Would you rate it from a scale from 1 out of 10? 10 being super valuable, super helpful. You learned a lot. You had fun. It was entertaining. It wasn't boring. 10 out of 10. Or you're it sucked. Obviously you wouldn't say that, but maybe it was a 5 or something like that. I don't know. Was it a 10 or is it a 0? Should people do it or not? That's my question for you. But yeah, anybody else who's been through the 5-day challenge, if you've gotten something out of it, then let me know in the chat so other people can be the beneficiary of that. But yeah, that will start in about two-ish weeks, 8 or 9 days from now. I'm not exactly sure, but you'll get a confirmation email when you register for that on that page, and you'll get updated on the next one coming. And we have a Facebook group that's external from this one where we run that challenge. So that's where we'll be. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to end the video on YouTube. Thanks guys so much for watching on YouTube. If you like this video, feel free to like the video or subscribe to the channel and all that kind of fun stuff. Thanks so much, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.